Don in London, hello. It's April the 7th. My videos all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour, equally addictive around people, places and things. Being with the right people, in the right place, with the right things. Trying to emulate being happy, or trying to pretend to be happy, with all the toys that we can get through endeavour, hard work. However we get there, we get there. I mean, sometimes when we get to where we think we ought to be, we have great expectations which are not met, because we forgot the actual value was in the journey rather than the destination. So these days I've changed my criteria of success to a 24-hour a day program, and that program is provided and supported by a fellowship. But before I get to that bit, I have to say the reason why I'm still alive today is because of family, friends, community and professionals who all played their part in keeping me alive when I didn't know how to anymore. And I would have much preferred to expire, not be here, because it was all just too much, because I was stuck in an addiction I couldn't do anything about on my own. So no amount of self-will, willpower, all those things we think are virtues when it comes to standing on our own 2 feet. Actually we learn we stand better on our own 2 feet independently by being interdependent with the rest of the world. So it's not us against the world or against the rest of the world. We're not in a battle. We're in a place of living life today. I hope that makes sense. It does to me. And so to fellowship, the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. The irony is I don't speak on behalf of anybody but me, but I do speak a lot about AA simply because it gave me focus and understanding about how to be well, how to live life one day at a time, and to enjoy it or be sad about it depending on my life experience. So if there are reasons to be joyful, I can be joyful. If there are reasons to be sad, I can be sad. So I'm not trying to fix myself anymore. I'm just living a life. And that's much better, because it means I can be open, honest and willing to change as life changes. So how does AA help me? Well, the principal source of wisdom is in the rooms of AA, the meetings of AA, where people get together and share their experience, strength and hope. And wherever it happens to be these days, I get wisdom from all sorts of sources which have got nothing to do with me. So I don't speak for the fellowship. It doesn't have any spokespersons, but I can share about how it helps me. And that's really important, because people within the fellowship are unique and authentic, finding their freedoms as they are today. And that's exactly what it's about. Freedom to be unique, authentic people. And we choose our path as we choose life. So how does AA help me? Well, I'm going to share the AA preamble, shared at every meeting, which really says what you see is what you get. So if you like what you see, why not stick around? But it doesn't promote itself. It doesn't say it's going to fix you. The only fixing that goes on was in the past. These days we look to live life as it is, life on life's terms. So it's not a promotion video, and it's certainly not a promotion thing within AA either. What you see is what you get, warts and all, just as life is. So some people can be swinging from the rafters because they're so ecstatically happy, or they may be as gloomy as the worst person you might meet on the worst occasion of their life, because that often happens. All life happens, and we're just a cross section. So here we go. This is the AA preamble, and then I'll share some readings from the literature and what it means to me. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Yeah, that's it. Don't want to get into any controversy, but I have to say, I live near the Chelsea Football Club ground, or not too far away from it, and there's an awful lot of people who are maybe not so happy tonight if they're a Chelsea fan, and a little bit happier if they're a Manchester United fan. But my videos are not about sides. So out there, I've just shut my windows because there are car horns blaring and people doing what they do after a football match. Can be good, can be bad, but most of them are piling into bars and pubs and having a few drinks to either drown their sorrows or be very happy. And that's the same in AA, except we don't use alcohol anymore. So there'll be some recovering alcoholics out there celebrating because they may be a Man United supporter, or commiserating because they're a Chelsea Football Club supporter. But within the fellowship, we actually rub along together and we don't take sides. We learn from each other what it's like to be happy and what it's like to be sad, and that life happens in the moment of now. Aren't we lucky? But, you know, it took an awful lot of time to get there. So for me it was 35 years of struggle with not knowing who I was, trying to fit in, trying to be whatever I thought you wanted me to be, and very trying person, trying to be perfect, and never so. And that's the strange thing. These days I don't have to strive except to live life on life's terms, deal with life as life is. In this book, Daily Reflections, which I'll share in a moment, Daily Reflections covers the 12 steps and 12 traditions of the fellowship. 12 steps around being open, honest and willing to change, which means we get humility back, and it's okay to make mistakes, and we don't feel guilty or shameful about making mistakes anymore. We own up to them straight away, so they don't become bigger and worse mistakes by trying to cover up. And then the traditions are about unity, service and recovery. Unity, service and recovery, so that the fellowship stays as it is according to that AA preamble. Primary purpose, a desire to stop drinking, is the only qualification to get in. The desire to stop drinking doesn't mean you've got to stop, just a desire, and then see how it goes. If what you see is what you need in your life, then maybe stick around. So no pushing or saying to you, you need to do it this way. But the 12 steps and everything else are suggestions. They're not edicts, they're not rules. They are suggestions. So they can't be broken and you can't be expelled. Yeah, that's great. So Daily Reflections, and then I'll look at As Bill Sees It, and then the 24-hour day book as well, which is not anything to do with AA, but it's produced by Hazelden, which is a producer of materials for sobriety. So it doesn't all have to be AA. In fact, you can be sober without AA, as you choose. That's exactly right. So Daily Reflections, April is all about step 4, which is doing a fearless moral inventory, our assets and liabilities, just to see a self-appraisal of how we got to where we got to, and what were the underlying currents of our behaviour and attitudes which lent us to drink and then find no way out. And that's good, because it tells us the history, so we look back but we don't stare unduly, but it does provide us with information about what we've done, what we need to do to find serenity in the moment, not forever. Nothing is forever, it's just for a day, and then see what we do with the rest of our lives, building for the future by living in the moment and experiencing what's going on now. So we put a foundation floor in, and then we build a strong shelter, our own personality, knowing ourselves better. So April 7th, it says here, a wide arc of gratitude, and this is Bill Wilson. And speaking for Dr. Bob and myself, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob are the co-founders of AA, I gratefully declare that had it not been for our wives, Anne and Lois, neither of us could have lived to see AA's beginning. And that comes from the AA Way of Life, page 67. Am I capable of such generous tribute and gratitude to my wife, parents and friends, without whose support I might never have survived to reach the AA's doors? I will work on this and try to see the plan my higher power is showing me, which links our lives together. So, similarly, if it hadn't been for family, friends and professionals, I wouldn't have seen the doors of AA or the meetings of AA. I'd have been dead. So I have gratitude. I have gratitude, deep gratitude, especially for family who put up with a person who was out of control and didn't know how to help themselves, until they actually said to themselves, I don't know how to get myself out of this. So rather than run on self-will and willpower, I suddenly realised self-will and willpower were making life impossible, because I was still trying to fix myself, and I needed to learn life all over again. It doesn't mean I'd give up my knowledge and my memory and my skills. What it says is attitude and behaviour. What's the right attitude and behaviour to help me live sober today? And that's based on emotions and understanding where I am now. So emotional and spiritual oneness, if you like, knowing what my feelings are and coping with life, which is suggested to be spiritual, because everything is spiritual in the moment. And if we go to places where people have done a lot of meditation and prayer, or there is a sanctuary, we find that there is a feeling of oneness with the world. And similarly, I get that in meetings of AA, because it's focusing on one thing, a desire to stop drinking, and then sharing a message of experience, strength and hope. That's why it works for me. I don't know why it works for anybody else, but I suggest, no, I do know, but there is a chapter in the big book of AA called How It Works, and it does make it very clear why it works and how it works. So, in As Bill Sees It, this one, there are pages and pages about different steps. And page 80 is about doing inventory, and there's two inventories we do. We do the big one in step 4, the fearless moral inventory of assets and liabilities, and then we do a daily inventory in step 10, which is just saying, okay, what's disturbed me today, or what's disturbed me during the day, and what amends? Why do I feel the way I do? Is it partly me? Is it partly them? What's going on? So we find out what our part in it is, and then we work on that, not on the other person's stuff. So for page 18, as Bill sees it, debits and credits. So for me, debits are liabilities and credits are assets. It says here, following a gossip binge, we can well ask ourselves these questions. Why did we say what we did? Were we only trying to be helpful and informative, or were we not trying to feel superior by confessing the other fellow's sins? So in other words, judge not, because if we're trying to get out of the situation by saying it was all their fault, we're not looking at what we can change, and that's others. We can't change other people. We may think we can by persuasion and influence, but generally, if they don't want to go along with it, they may say yes, but their behaviour will say no. So all we can do is own our part in matters, and if people want to change, they will. But if they don't want to change, we can change our part and move on. We don't have to stick around in bad situations. We can actually move along into new situations, even though it might be very painful. Yes, or were we not trying to feel superior by confessing the other fellow's sins? Or because of fear and dislike? Were we not really aiming to damage him? So there are people we won't like, and believe you me, in AA, I've found people I don't like, because they're just, there you see, I'm starting to judge them. This would be an honest attempt to examine ourselves rather than the other fellow. So why am I disturbed by that person? Or what is disturbing me about my situation relating to the overall situation? So bring it back to me, something I can work on, which often is walk away from a situation which is not good for me, and don't criticise, because it won't do any good. It just won't do any good. It goes on to say, inventory taking is not always done in red ink. It's a poor day indeed when we haven't done something right. As a matter of fact, the waking hours are usually well filled with things that are constructive. good intentions, good thoughts and good acts are there for us to see. Even when we have tried hard and failed, we may chalk that up as one of the greatest credits of all. So if we've tried hard and failed, we've endeavoured. And if it doesn't work out, we've learned a great big thing, not to do it again. So we stop being insane, trying to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So if something's failing, and there's good reason why it has, and there's nothing we can do about it, why are we flogging a dead horse? Yeah, now that sounds right to me, but you know, I can flog horses all day long and they're all dead. And then wonder why I feel bitter and twisted. And the answer is because they won't come back to life. Anyway, 24-hour day book. I do smile at myself sometimes because, you know, life is funny. And I have to laugh because I've just watched the news again, the international news, where it's all going wrong because people are doing half-hearted things rather than full commitment. And they're putting sticking plasters on gaping wounds. And the reason why I feel particularly aggrieved tonight is because our Prime Minister is dismantling our medical services. The National Health Service, he says it needs to be dismantled because that will make it better. But he doesn't know how to put it together again in a form which offers best treatment, best practice and best service. And does he care? Well, he says he does. But he can resort to private medicine, can't he? And he doesn't have to deal with GPs who don't know you, who he's putting in power. He doesn't have to explain why GPs are susceptible to all sorts of influences once they have their hands on the I suppose the funds, really. Anyway, I'm going off the point, aren't I? So I can't do anything about that. I'm just flogging a dead horse, but it's irritating me because I have two clinical conditions, physical and emotional, which get in the way of, or could get in the way of my sobriety. And without sobriety, I wouldn't have those conditions. Now there's an irony. So I need fellowship to keep me sane a day at a time, or I'll fly off the handle and think I know better than everybody else. And I don't. I really don't. Anyway, for April 7th in the 24-hour day book, and the reason why it's a non-AA book is because maybe some of the language isn't as clear or helpful, and I found this today. In AA, alcoholics find a way to solve their personality problems. They do this by recovering three things. First, they recover their personal integrity. That's around open, honest and willing. They pull themselves together. And actually that phrase, they pull themselves together, is not true. We don't pull ourselves together. We learn how to put the parts back together again. So we don't pull together again, we're in repair. So the notion that you can pull yourself together, all you need is a swift kick up the backside and everything's going to be alright, just get on with it, is complete baloney. Anybody who's suffered depression because of alcohol cannot pull themselves together. They need time to work out and understand their emotional state and how to live in the day again. And that can't always be done necessarily by pulling themselves together. They need other help. They get honest with themselves and with other people, yes. They face themselves and their problems honestly, as much as we can, because we're still prone to saying, I don't believe it. And denial is a very long river in Egypt. But the other denial we have is equally difficult, but also a necessary process. We need denial long enough to get through and cope sometimes, or we would just fall apart completely. So it's not a fixing. This is it. It's not fixing. They face themselves and their problems honestly instead of running away. Well, yes. They take a personal inventory of themselves to see where they really stand. Yes. Then they face the facts instead of making excuses for themselves. Have I recovered my integrity? Well, part of recovering my integrity is knowing my personal state on a daily basis. So, as I was taught as part of my career, was to understand my feelings. How am I feeling today? Why? and what can I do? And that's assertiveness around how am I feeling, why, and what can I do? But we also need empathy, which is about interdependence, not power over or power being taken away from us. Interdependence is about empathy. How are we feeling, why, and what can we do? So it's about working together interdependently. I'm going to leave it there because I've waffled on a bit. But the most important thing is, all these readings, whether it's from 24-hour day book, as Bill sees it, or daily reflections, or the 12 and 12, which are the 12 steps and 12 traditions, which I love this book. It saved my life because it gave me something to read when I didn't understand it. And of course the big book, this one, always available at all good meetings. All those books help me when I can't get to meetings, and I haven't been to a meeting for a little while now, and that's due to one or two reasons: preference on my part, and also interest in my photography. But all the time I don't lose touch with fellowship. All the time I'm concentrating not so much on the rest of the world. I've got to put enough effort into me to be able to cope. Not to be good, just to cope with life. And presently I'm missing my friends in fellowship, so that's a good reason to be back. I don't know that I'm under threat in terms of sobriety, but you see, it's one day long, and if in any one day life ain't good, I'm off to a meeting, because that is where I can share how I'm feeling, why, and then maybe somebody else may have an answer to what I may do next, which is just bear with it long enough to keep on working through the feelings that we have. Feelings around, especially romance and finance, I've mentioned it a few times. Romance can tip us upside down very easily because we don't control love. We have feelings, we love people, and sometimes they love us back. But if we love people and they don't love us back, romance will actually cause us great heartache. Or if somebody loves us and we don't know how to love them back because it just ain't going to work, then open, honest and willing to be open now rather than build up a problem in the future because of personal gain. People like to be loved, but if you're not willing to commit and be a part of, or even understand the possibilities, how many times have I rushed into romance? I don't know. But it was always a good idea at the time. I'm learning maybe it's not. Finance, needs met, wants forgotten. If I can cover my needs over the next year or so, and I think I can, if I'm careful, needs met, wants forgotten, it's going to be a tough time, not only for me but for everybody. That's just the way it is. So I'm not going to stretch myself and say I need this or I want this in order to be happy. If I have my needs met, a roof over my head and enough porridge in the cupboard and a few biscuits and one of this and one of that and one of this, I could go on forever, but that's what starts us off on the I'll be alright when. We have to be alright now. And if we're alright now, we can forget about tomorrow to an extent, or at least know with purpose what we need to do today so that tomorrow can happen. The serenity prayer at the end of these videos is always important to me. Tells me what I can and cannot do in any given day, and where I can get some wisdom. And it won't always come from inside me. I can work a certain amount out myself. I can help other people, but I also need it to work the other way too, to get ideas and help and wisdom from others. So the serenity prayer is the reminder to be always learning, to have humility, so serenity can happen. Serenity is accepting life on life's terms, good or bad, and working toward covering needs. So, to God all good conscience, whatever you choose as your higher power, whatever works for you, and you know, everything's pretty much a higher power than me when I don't know what to do, and that's how it works for me, asking for help. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is, for me, just for today. And I could transfer my preferences or addictions into other behaviour, like work, relationships, collecting, people, places and things. A marketing person's dream, if you put it in front of me, I wanted it. Obsession, taking everything to extremes and wanting to be perfect myself, and never so, and never quite right with who I was. So why drink? Why did I drink in the first place? Well, I know the first drink did do the damage when I was a kid. And it was nobody's fault. I just picked it off a table and swigged it down. And it made me feel different. It made me feel relaxed. The fear went away. I felt happy. And I didn't fear. And that was the thing. I didn't fear. And I felt sleepy as well. So that first drink did change the way I felt. And really, that's why we take alcohol in the first place. It's an end of day thing when we start, conviviality, to relax, take the edge off, and enjoy life, and make life feel better. It's still a fix, because if life is going well, why on earth would we want to drink in the first place? We could talk about it being social, but for anybody who's prone to addiction or finds themselves an addict to anything, be it people, places, things, alcohol, drugs of whatever nature, food, we're all in the same boat. We get to a place where we cannot stop, and it's harming us, and it's self-harm. So self-will to stop doesn't seem to work, because it becomes an obsession. We measure everything to try and stop. And then, if we're lucky, we find a fellowship which can help us, which says, you don't have to control anything, all we need to do is let it go. Realise where we've come from and what will make today work soberly, and that is understanding our emotions, our spiritual connection to now, and being as physically well as we possibly can be. And that fellowship for me excuse me, is Alcoholics Anonymous. So I am a fellow of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, just one of many, and many people share their experience, strength and hope. And I'm just one of them. It's just my story. I can't speak for AA, never want to, never can. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak for themselves where they choose. And anonymity is the sanctuary, similar to a doctor or a psychiatrist or a counsellor. It's a place to find the truth of who we are. And in the rooms of AA, anonymity is extremely important. It's actually paramount, because it means the fellowship keeps safe, where people can find the truth of who they are. And if we find the truth, we find our spiritual connection to living. It's not about religion, it's about being in reality. That's what spiritual is, the ability to cope with now. So we try and look for balance in each and every day. So what does AA do for me? Well, I share the AA preamble, which is the statement of intent, and then some of the readings. And meetings help me, and there's a 12-step action program to change our attitude and behaviour on a daily basis. That's it, 12 steps a day. All work if we work at them. So what is AA? This is the AA preamble, shared at every meeting, so whether you're a newcomer or an old-timer, we hear it as many times as we go to meetings, hopefully. But do we hear it? No, not always, because our minds are shut down. And that's why we go to meetings, and that's to open our minds up again. So I share the preamble just to remind me of what AA does for me daily. And it goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that's it. desire to stop drinking is the reason to go, and we share our experience, strength and hope. Often anonymously, or some people share openly. It's a choice. It's a choice for the individual how we do that. And the whole program is about enabling personal choice about how to be sober, unique, authentic people. And we have this one similarity: addiction and recovery. So, what did the daily reflection say today? This book. And it's all about step 4, and when we get help, and who help, and how. So, there were 2 people who started the fellowship, Bill and Bob, and they were married. And it's an acknowledgement, really. It says here, April 7th, a wide arc of gratitude. And speaking for Dr. Bob and myself, I gratefully declare that had it not been for our wives, Anne and Lois, neither of us would have lived to see AA's beginning. And that's all about, how do we actually get to a moment of clarity and be alive to have it? We need help. Am I capable of such generous tribute and gratitude to my wife, parents and friends, without whose support I might never... That's the bottles from the restaurant next door. I always mention that when they go off. It's the empties. Am I capable of such generous tribute and gratitude to my wife, parents and friends, without whose support I might never have survived to reach AA's doors? I will work on this and try to see the plan of my higher power. It's showing me which links our lives together. And, the higher power, whether it's God, a good conscience, the AA fellowship, a group of people you're trusting, your family, somebody who you turn to for help and support. We often realise that if we try to do it on our own, we're back into self-will, willpower, which leads to obsession with addicts like us, and then into self-will run riot, where we just cannot control it, and that's the big danger. And April for me is all about step 4, and in the 12 steps and 12 traditions, step 4 is all about a fearless moral inventory. And I was just reading a little bit from it earlier, and it's very interesting because everything sort of knits together quite well when we read literature and experience real life. And this paragraph or 2 reads like this from page 43, step 4, all about the moral inventory. We have also seen men and women who go power mad, who devote themselves to attempting to rule their fellows. These people often throw to the winds every chance for legitimate security and a happy family life. Whenever a human being becomes a battleground for the instincts, there can be no peace. In other words, our instincts go to extremes. And our feelings too. But that is not all of the danger. Every time a person imposes his instincts unreasonably upon others, unhappiness follows. If the pursuit of wealth tramples upon people who happen to be in the way, then anger, jealousy and revenge are likely to be aroused. If sex runs riot, there is a similar uproar. Demands made upon other people for too much attention, protection and love can only invite domination or revulsion in their protectors themselves. 2 emotions quite as unhealthy as the demands which evokes them. When an individual's desire for prestige becomes uncontrollable, whether in the sewing circle or at the international conference table, other people suffer and often revolt. This collision of instinct can produce anything from a cold snub to a blazing revolution. In these ways we are set in conflict not only with ourselves but with other people who have instincts too. So we don't exist on our own, and when we realise that we might be at extremes and in recovery, we say, hey, wait a minute, how am I feeling, why, and what can I do? Because these feelings are really at extremes, and I'm reacting to somebody else's instincts maybe, but it doesn't make it right. We just need to find a way forward, and we use the 12 steps to help us. So whenever those extremes are coming at me, the serenity prayer helps me on a daily basis. And that prayer to God or good conscience or a higher power of your choosing, authentic to you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Really is good for today. all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour, trying to be perfect and never so. So good alcoholic, good workaholic, good relationshipaholic, and always towards the extremes. And it broke me in the end. All those combinations of things broke me over the years and made me isolated, excluded, and not a part of anything. Only what was going on in my head. And in my head it was quite insane. I was in a bind and I couldn't get out of it. If I couldn't get out of drinking, how on earth would I make my life work again? So there are various ways to get back to sanity and sobriety and finding where we are emotionally, spiritually and physically. And AA is not the only way. However, I talk about AA because it's helped me. I never speak for AA, it is just a bunch of people in a fellowship. It has no leaders, but it has a few trusted servants who help with the organisation and the literature which is available for people to use. So I don't represent AA, I represent me and my recovery. However, if I didn't share the tools of how I got to recovery, it would be a bit of a short video, and I wouldn't be able to say very much more. So what helps me? I know now that if I ask myself in the morning, how am I feeling? Why? What can I do? So how am I feeling today? Okay, not enough sleep. Why? Disturbed by the feelings of another person around the AA program and the fellowship, and their hate. Well, I guess disillusionment would be a good word, because when we get to AA, we expect we may be fixed and either to drink or be able to do the things we used to do. And the simple answer is, once an addict, always an addict. And trying to go back to controlled drinking or some semblance of being able to drink and it will be all right is really a pipe dream. So for me, I had to get over that, get over the denial of where I was, denial of a disease and an illness, a mental illness, and get to some place of calm and serenity so I could make life work again. At every meeting of AA I go to, and as somebody said, I need to get a life outside AA because it seems like I spend my whole time there. Well, I don't. But you know, it's a good criticism, and we all need criticism and a kick up the bum from time to time. Anyway, what happens at AA meetings is this, and this preamble is shared at the beginning of every meeting I go to anyway, and it goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. Very straightforward statement. A fellowship. Share experience, strength and hope that we can recover from alcoholism or stay in recovery a day at a time. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, and it certainly doesn't ally itself with my videos because it's me and my recovery, and I would never presume to speak on behalf of AA. I've been invited to, but I won't, because I can't. It neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So part of me sharing the message is me and my recovery here on YouTube. And you know, sometimes it's supported by people because they get some use out of it, mainly because I use the books of AA to help, Daily Reflections, and As Bill Sees It, and this other one, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of AA, 12 steps of work we have to put in as individuals to make ourselves open, honest and willing to make life work with a new action program, and 12 steps of action to keep us safe. And this month it's step 4, all about a moral inventory, self-appraisal of our assets and liabilities, mainly about resentments in life. So it's a good thing for me to do this and to be reminded of what keeps me sober. And it's important that anybody out there who is in the addiction and in the problem gets help, medical support, professional support, or any support which seems to make life more livable sober, because we need to be sober to find out how we can live. We've spent an awful lot of time being excluded, isolated, and being driven mad by our addiction. So it takes a while to get to a place of out of the problem into the solution, and those 12 steps. And I need the literature, and I need to keep going to AA, because if I don't, I run the risk of getting isolated, excluded, and not part of, rather than being part of, included in family, society, community, you name it. It's better to be in than out. And the daily reflections for today is April, so as I say, all about step 4 and the fearless moral inventory and what it means for us. But this particular reading says, on April the 7th, a wide arc of gratitude. And speaking for Dr. Bob and myself, and this is Bill Wilson, one of the co-founders, I gratefully declare that had it not been for our wives, Anne and Lois, neither of us would have lived to see AA's beginning. Am I capable of such generous tribute and gratitude to my wife, parents and friends, without whose support I might never have survived to reach AA's doors? I will work on this and try to see the plan my higher power is showing me, which links our lives together. And you know, it's the higher power of humanity for me, good, God, conscience, all those things, which has made me able to have a wide arc of gratitude. And you know, this wide arc of gratitude, I wouldn't be here without the help of my brother, my sister, my mother, my family, and people who knew me through the most awful times. And professional help, medical support. And you know, what keeps things going on a daily basis? After getting sober, then I had to try and put my life back together and find a meaning for it and a purpose. So I knew I had something going for me. So the only way I found is AA, and I'm not suggesting that anybody out there needs to join or be a member, but don't forget, it's just ordinary people who get to AA, good and bad, making progress and never perfect. So if you're looking for a perfect fix, an answer to your malady or your addiction, you ain't going to find it. The truth of it is, it's self-healing through sharing wisdom, sharing experience, strength and hope. Those are the ways forward, not some magical cure, and after 6 months you can go out and do it all over again. You could go do it all over again and find back in the insanity very quickly. So, you know, it's important to me that everybody gets the opportunity. In this book, as Bill sees it, which I refer to, it's got a bit on Pearl Harbor, so it's a bit outdated, so I'm going to page 72. Dependent, unhealthy or healthy. Nothing can be more demoralizing than a clinging and abject dependence upon another human being. This often amounts to the demand for a degree of protection and love that no one could possibly satisfy. So our hoped-for protectors finally flee, and once more we are left alone, either to grow up or to disintegrate. So, yes, if we lean heavily on some people, we pull them down while they don't want to know us. We discovered that the best possible source of emotional stability to be God himself, or in my case, good conscience, truth, love, and God works through people. We found that dependence upon his perfect justice, forgiveness and love was healthy, and that it would work where nothing else would. If we really depended on God, we couldn't very well play God to our fellows, nor would we feel the urge to rely wholly on human protection and care. And, you know, it's really about a higher power. So what gives me human protection and care is the fellowship of AA, my family, community, and society. And, you know, there is help for all of us. There's my phone going. Just one moment. Video interrupted. It's probably a good thing. Anyway, I must leave it there. So what works for me may not work for you. But, you know, I like the fact that I've come from the problem into the solution just for today. And my spiritual, emotional and physical well-being is as good as it may be, given I have type 1 diabetes, clinical depression and all sorts of other complications along the way. So what helps me as well is saying the serenity prayer, which goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to learn the difference, just simply for one day. An important day yesterday. It was a celebration of my brother's 50th birthday, and all the family came, and we all went to by Bendham, the Conran restaurant on Sloane Avenue, which is just next door to me, and it's 5 yards across the road for me to get there. So very handy for me to be there. And my brother's family, all 5 of them, came up from the countryside, and my sister and mother turned up as well, of course, and we all spent a few hours together celebrating my brother's 50th, which was a low-key affair, really, but the restaurant chosen by Bendham was a sheer delight, because it's 3 courses, and eat as much as you can, I guess, for a fixed price. Very unusual, but the fixed price is rather high, and the actual cost of the meal for all of us was probably equal to 2 months of my food bill. So in essence it was a rare treat indeed, and the good thing for me was being there and being part of. Anyway, these videos are really all about AA and recovery, and part of recovery is sharing the truth of now, and the truth of now was rather good yesterday, and I did get to my late evening meeting of AA. Anyway, here we go with the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to sobriety. Other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Sorry, my eyesight's way out this morning. A lot of rich food yesterday and plenty of insulin to bring it all back to normal. And having had a lovely lunch, I've been trying to make music to accompany my videos, and it's taking quite a while to work out how to do it. I've now solved part of the problem. Now I have to write it, and that's something I've never done before. And the beauty of recovery is, wherever we are, wherever we end up, having drunk ourselves to a place of oblivion and to a place of rock bottom, we can redeem life, and it's a very slow and gentle process. And for me, learning how to live in an alcoholic daze for decades, I guess, without the ability to feel things as they are. I wonder, not all of that time was suppression, but a lot of it was about being good enough and putting on a brave face and being what people wanted me to be, rather than really discovering who am I. And it's an irony, really. The program talks about self-obsession when we're drinking. What's interesting is I learn my identity now, not by trying to find out what it is, but by living and finding interest in life. It's putting life and me into the same place of practice. And I'm reading this book very, very slowly. It's called the Practicing the Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, and I'm only on page 3, really, of the text, because each part really resonates with me. Dreadful word to use, resonate. People often misuse it. And I must change my glasses because my eyesight is not as good as it could be this morning. And it goes, this is just a paragraph. It says, to regain awareness of being and to abide in that state of feeling realization is enlightenment. The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way. But it is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. It is a state of connectedness with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that, almost paradoxically, is essentially you, and yet is much greater than you. It is finding your true nature beyond name or form, or name and form. And those are heavy words, and trying to make sense of them, really, I don't know if I'd have been able to make sense of them in my younger years, where I was striving always to be the person that people wanted me to be, rather just enjoying life as it is, and being able to go to sleep without that feeling of insecurity. And these days the insecurity is not about me. It's not there as such. I accept where I am today, and it's okay to be me. I'm just learning that. So when it talks about enlightenment there, it isn't some superhuman effort which enables us to do this. It's letting the world in and not filtering out those things we feel may be wrong or irrelevant to us. It's being interested in what is around us and just being part of life. And I guess that was the beauty of yesterday. It was not about me, it was about my brother and his celebration. But he didn't make it about him, and no one else did either. It was just 8 people, 1 mother, 1 sister, 1 brother, 1 wife, 3 children, getting on together, and there was no agenda except the celebration of now. So, what a turnaround, eh? Anyway, coming back to Sunday and the daily reflections, this month in the book is all about step 4. So, that's the fearless moral inventory. So for April 6th it goes here. A lifetime process. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. From AA's Big Book 52, page 52. The words remind me that I have more problems than alcohol. Alcohol is only a symptom of a more pervasive disease. When I stopped drinking, I began a lifetime process of recovery from unruly emotions, painful relationships, and unmanageable situations. This process is too much for most of us without help from a higher power and our friends in the fellowship. When I began to work in the steps of the AA program, many of these tangled threads unravelled, but little by little the most broken places of my life straightened out. One day at a time, almost imperceptibly, I healed. Like a thermostat being turned down, my fears diminished. I began to experience moments of contentment. My emotions became less volatile. I am now once again a part of the human family. And that's just what happened yesterday. So it's prophetic in a way, but what it's saying is it's ordinary living, and it can be just what it is, beautiful and enlightening in the moment without effort. And the reward for me is having my feelings left to just be there, be a part of, and not feel like I don't belong or I need to block it out with any sort of filter of denial or drink. And page 124, as Bill sees it, says here, freedom to choose. Looking back, we see that our freedom to choose badly was not, after all, a very real freedom. When we chose because we must, this was not a free choice either, but it got us started in the right direction. When we chose because we ought to, we were really doing better. This time we were earning some freedom, making ourselves ready for more. But when, now and then, we could hardly make right choices without rebellion, holdout, or conflict, then we had our first view of what perfect freedom under God's will would be like. Say that again. But when, now and then, we could gladly make right choices without rebellion, holdout, or conflict, then we had our first view of what perfect freedom under God's will would be like. And it says there, gladly make right choices without rebellion. And there was no rebellion in me yesterday. I was just being me. To be smiling, to be happy, to laugh at times past, times present, and find out that we have another family out there which we've never met, because my father was an orphan and his mother never told anybody about his existence. Not because she didn't want to, but because she was told not to. And 18 years after his death, my father's death, we're still finding out new things. And to have connection where we never expected, and a complete surprise to another bunch of people, needs to be dealt with very carefully, and it's out of my hands. And it's good to know there's more out there than we will ever know, and I'm glad about that. 50 years, well done my brother.